welcome to Bar Essential, straight from Happiness Bar, where my goal is to share cocktails, content, and happiness. And in this series, we're going to go over the essential ingredients needed by every great bar, every great bartender, and every happiness bar. And today, we're talking ice. I'm going to show you how to get that crystal clear, large ice cube for your cocktails. If you're looking for recipes on simple syrup, demerara syrup, ginger syrup, mint syrup, honey syrup, saline solution, orgeat, or even a technique for citrus juicing, check out the links below. If you're in the right place, let's jump in. So, tools you're going to need today are a mallet. You may need a pot to boil your water if your sink water doesn't get hot enough. You're going to need a cutting board. You're going to need a serrated knife. You're going to need some bar towels. You're going to need a hard cooler, size depending on how much ice you want to make. And for our ingredients, all we're going to need is water. All right, so the technique behind getting that crystal clear large ice cube. We all want it. It looks fabulous in a drink. It's impressive. People are always like, hey, how'd you get that so clear? There is a trick. You can't use the molds. The molds, you can get a nice large ice cube, but it'll never be clear no matter what you do. And the reason is, it freezes too fast. So there's 2 points to our technique that make sure we get that clear ice. First is we use the hottest water possible. You can use your sink water if it gets like steaming hot. If it doesn't get that hot, you need to boil your water. And that hot water will cause that ice to freeze at the rate it needs, so that way it stays clear. And the other thing is doing it in a larger format. So you can't get away with it in those little ice molds. They freeze too fast. That being said, let's grab our large cooler, and you want a hard cooler. These Igloo coolers are great. You can go with a larger one if you need a lot of ice, but I find for at home, this is probably the perfect size. This is probably a 9 by 12 inch, something in there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill it about 2 inches away from the top with the hottest possible water. All right, we got our cooler filled with steaming hot water. Next step, we need to put it in our freezer for 2 days. If you do have a larger cooler, it may take 3 days, but this size cooler, 2 days should be perfect. All right, our cooler's full. Let's get it in the freezer. And once it's frozen, we'll come back and I'll show you the technique for cutting our ice by hand to get those perfect cubes for our cocktails. All right, guys, so it's been 2 days. It's been about 48 hours. As you can see, my ice is nice and frozen in my cooler here. You can kind of already see how clear it is. You can see straight to the bottom of the cooler. So, to get started, I'm gonna lay out a couple towels on my counter here just to make sure my cutting board doesn't slide too much. All right, we're gonna grab our cutting board. We got our knife, and I'm gonna grab a couple of other lint-free towels here and put them on top of my cutting board so it absorbs some of the water that comes off the ice. If you can do this near your kitchen sink, great. Then you can scoop all your ice near it. Obviously, I don't have a sink here on this set, so we're gonna make the best of what we got. So grab our cooler again, and we're gonna flip it up on to our cutting board and our towels. Grab your little mallet. Give it a hit, you hear it. Oh, so much water. Way more water than I expected. Oh my gosh. Way more water than I expected came out. That's okay though. So usually you'd see this might be frozen over still, and you'd have to crack that and gracefully pour the water out. I obviously did not get a chance to do that, so I'm gonna dry this up real quick, and then we're gonna get right back to the cutting. All right, we got the water remedied. All right, so if you had that happen, there's one less step for you to do. Now, if you didn't have that happen, if it didn't break the top part which holds the water that didn't freeze, you would take your knife, take your mallet, and you'd hit your knife and make a nice little crack very slowly, preferably by a sink. Slowly dump that water out. So I do need to still dump some of the water out. I'm gonna dump that back into the cooler here. Set my cooler down, set this ice down, and get these wet towels out of here. Continue to dry my cutting board. You have the least amount of water possible getting everywhere. We're gonna lay 2 fresh lint-free towels down. And the towels will just help keep the ice from moving all around on you. So as you can see, this ice, man, it is so clear. I can see right through it. Now, after you've cracked the ice, got rid of the excess water, you're gonna take your knife and you see all these edges here on the top? You're just gonna cut those edges right off. You want a clean edge, right? So it can be a little messy. Okay, so you just keep grinding that edge off. Be careful not to cut your hand like I almost just did. Also, side note, if you have like an ice glove, that could be helpful because Your hands do get cold doing this, but hey, you know what? Fucking deal with it. All right? It's pain for perfection. I mean, look at this thing, man. Look at this thing. It's awesome. Yeah, so you're gonna flip your ice over now. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by scoring the ice. Now you gotta think about the size of your rocks glass, right? So you probably want this ice about 2 inches wide. 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide. So I score the end a little, score here, and you're just gonna keep on scoring. And this is where the mallet comes in handy. Just gonna give it taps, and it breaks off, just like that, right? So you're gonna do that all the way down your ice block. And I mean, we're cutting the standard rocks glass size ice, but the great thing about cutting this by hand is you can cut it for any cocktail, for any type of ice that you wanna do. If you wanna make a long sphere for a tall glass, you can do that as well. We'll have one side of the ice that's a little smaller. Maybe we'll cut that into something else. You see I had a screw up there. Sometimes with the ends it'll break off a little like jagged and you won't get the best cut and you gotta then shave it off a bit, but that's okay. So we'll set these aside, we don't need those. So we got in our large spheres here. What do we need to do next? Cut them down a little smaller, so about the same distance, right? Score it, take your mallet, tap it. Score it, take your mallet, tap it. Score it, take your mallet, tap it. There we go. Now, when we get to this point, you should grab your rocks glass, because what we want to do is test to make sure that our cubes aren't too big. I can tell you right now, this is too big, so we're gonna have to shave this down a little bit. So, we want it nice. At this point, you could probably just shave by cutting and not really use the mallet once you get to the smaller cube portion. So, it's still a little too big. Right, you could do perfect squares if you want. You could do a little more amorphous. There you have it, man. The perfect little clear ice cube for your cocktails. Now we just gotta do this for the rest of this. You have a cooler or something you can place these ice cubes back in so you can put them back into the freezer. Sometimes if they're just good enough, you could spin them to make sure that they fit. Hands are getting cold right about now. If they just barely fit, I stick with it and just use that because they are probably gonna lose a little bit of their volume as they sit here and as you put them back in the freezer. As always, guys, make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. You're working with something slippery. It can be very easy to slip and cut yourself. So I keep that thumb curled in like that, okay? Especially with your hands getting numb. Easy to be careless because you want to move quick, obviously. What I love about cutting by hand is, you know, much like a snowflake, they all come out just a little bit different, which I think is kind of cool. Right, so you can make them more rounded, make them perfect squares if you want. Cut them into maybe like a diamond shape. I don't know, you know. Have fun with it and play with your art, your ice cutting, sculpting art abilities. Hands getting real numb right now. I wish I had that cut glove still. Got our last one here. Oh, I'm so excited. A little large, but we're gonna leave it like that because it'll shrink down a little bit. And there you have it, guys. Crystal clear, large format ice cubes. Essential for every bar and every Happiness Bar. All right, for more great recipes, check out the rest of my page here at Happiness Bar. And hey, guys, become a regular somewhere. Become a regular at your local watering hole. It's the best way to support local business. And become a regular here at Happiness Bar by liking, commenting, subscribing. Hit that bell if you want notifications. We got cocktail videos coming out every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern to get you ready for the weekend. Stay happy, everyone. Clean up all this ice.